and in the document of the National Democratic Revolution. In spite of the GNU, even in spite of the fact that the DA and the Freedom Front Plus and the IFP and all these other parties now form part of the government, the ANC just pushes through every ideological bill that they want to, because it is in their ideology still today. One cannot deny it. One cannot deny the fact that the ANC is still just as communist today as they were under Nelson Mandela during the time that Stratcom operated. Other things that Stratcom did was to warn that the ANC would kill black people cooperating with apartheid authorities, which, surprise, surprise, they did. You know, conservative estimates say that more than 1,000 people were actually necklaced in the townships by the ANC, if not if they were cooperating with the apartheid authorities, but just if there was any suspicion of them cooperating with the apartheid authorities, such as Stompie Saipai, the boy that Winnie Mandela had murdered, even though he was just a young boy. They said he was an informant and therefore he was tortured to death to give information on his supposedly being an informant. And it later came out that Stompie was never an apartheid informant. Another thing that Stratcom actually talked about a lot is that the ANC was stealing the foreign funding that they were receiving, particularly from the USSR, which they probably did at the time, let's be honest with one another. If we look at how they are looting the state coffers today, do you really think that the ANC didn't steal other money that they were given? Or if they are doing it on this massive scale since 1994. So when you think about it, sensationalized headlines such as, you know, what we see in South Africa, and one that we also saw on the Daily Maverick, particularly here, about Stratcom, we see that the same sensationalist tactics that were employed by Stratcom is now being employed by the media. This is it, selling apartheid. New book lays bare extent of South Africa's propaganda war. You see, it's just like two sides of the same coin. Both sides are pushing propaganda at the end of the day. So, yes, Stratcom was spreading ANC propaganda with state funding, but right now, News24 is, for example, spreading anti-Willem Petzer propaganda, anti-Solidarity Movement propaganda, anti-AfriForum propaganda. It is not like the propaganda war was in any way unique to apartheid, and now somehow all of these mainstream media outlets have magically turned neutral and unbiased and objective. The same News24, the same Naspers that was working with the apartheid government in order to spread the narrative that the apartheid government wanted them to spread, is now spreading the narrative that the ANC wants to spread. Nothing actually has changed. Everyone has some sort of bias, and this is an integral part of being human. Now, let's look at the key narratives pushed by Stratcom, and we can divide the two key narratives up into two different headings, what one can say. On the one hand, we had Rooi Gevaar, which is the danger of communist takeover in South Africa that was pushed onto the white population in South Africa, employing the media such as Naspers. And the other one was the Swart Gevaar, the dangers of a black majority government in South Africa. Let's look at the Rooi Gevaar first. What were the points that the Stratcom actually made during apartheid? Number one, the ANC was a Soviet puppet seeking to install a Marxist dictatorship in South Africa. Well, today we see that the ANC, after the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, was in fact a Soviet puppet wanting to spread Marxism. As for if they were seeking to install a Marxist dictatorship in South Africa, yes, They were. It was in their own freedom charter, in their own national democratic revolution. Their own documents actually said that. As if we look for at the situation today, the ANC is in effect a one-party state in South Africa. And the main reason why the ANC had established this one-party state here in South Africa was through extreme violence during the so-called People's War. You see, there were so many different anti-apartheid movements within the sphere of the so-called struggle. You had the PAC, you had APLA, you had the IFP themselves wanting to fight for the interests of the Zulus, etc. But because the ANC actually went out and killed anyone that was not particularly aligned with the ANC themselves, they effectively created this monopoly on the struggle against apartheid through violence, mostly violence, but also, basically creating this idea within the black communities that nobody else is worthy of being voted for. And we see that in the black communities even today, that they do not vote for any party except for the ANC or the ANC's offshoots, such as the EFF and the MK party, even though a very tiny minority of them actually do vote for the IFP, particularly the Zulus. The DA, on the other hand, who always come with this Rainbow Nation ideology and trying to push onto us that they are going to create the dream of Nelson Mandela and so on and so forth, had never in the history of their party actually got more than 4% of the votes within the black population. The only reason why the DA is getting close to 20% of the votes is, number one, because more than half of the college support them, and number two, because white people are much more likely to vote in South Africa. So even though white people are outnumbered 10-1 in South Africa, roughly 20% of the voters that actually go to the polls are white people, because white people are twice more likely to vote in general than black people are. So in that sense, Stratcom, I would say, were roughly 90% right on that point. Now, second point, Nelson Mandela was portrayed as a hardline communist, personally trained by the KGB and intent on establishing a one-party communist state. Okay, so we already talked about the one-party communist state. Let's talk about Nelson Mandela being a hardline communist and trained by the KGB. So, just when Nelson Mandela was starting to take over South Africa in the early 90s, just before the election, he vehemently denied ever being part of the South African Communist Party because, of course, he wanted to appease the West that were very anti-communist, and most of the actual pressure on the South African government to transition into a multiracial democracy was being perpetuated by the West. And then later, during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and other testimonies, it came out that during his time at studying at the University of Witwatersrand, or Wits, with Joe Slovo, Nelson Mandela was not only a member of the South African Communist Party, he was actively participating as a leader there. So on this point, also, Stratcom, I would say, was roughly 90% right. Then, Stratcom perpetuated the narrative that anti-apartheid activists during the time were communist agents, regardless of their actual ideology. On this point, I would say 50-50. Stratcom was roughly 50% right, because there were people who were vehemently anti-apartheid, or black South Africans in particular, who did not espouse a overtly Marxist-Leninist ideology, such as the Black Conscious Movement under Steve Biko. But on the other hand, those that were intimately involved with the ANC and South African Communist Party were. So that one will give a 50-50%. Trade unions were framed by Stratcom as communist fronts designed to sabotage the economy. Well, in this sense, I would give it a 70% right. Later, it came out that the trade unions that also form part of the Tripartite Alliance, for those of you who do not know what that is, so South Africa had been governed by the Tripartite Coalition or Alliance since 1994, and up until the time where the GNU was established, where three parties were actually